There are places that promise peace, the kind where you can escape everything: work, stress, the noise of the world. But sometimes, those places hide something darker than we can ever imagine. Scene cuts to a young woman, Lucy, in her late 20s, walking through a dense forest, carrying a small duffel bag over her shoulder. The trees are thick, blocking much of the light. I needed a break. A weekend away from everything. No calls, no emails, just me and the cabin in the woods. Lucy arrives at a secluded wooden cabin. It's small but charming, surrounded by trees. She smiles to herself as she sets her bag down and unlocks the door. It seemed perfect, quiet, isolated, a place to recharge. Little did Lucy know, her arrival would stir something that had been dormant for years. Lucy walks into the cabin, taking in the cozy, rustic interior. A crackling fireplace is already lit, casting a warm glow. She sighs in relief and drops her bag on the couch. This is just what I needed. She looks around, noticing the old furniture, a large bookshelf, and a few old framed pictures on the walls. There's a particular picture of a family near the fireplace that catches her eye. It's blurry, like it was taken years ago. A family of 3, smiling. The mother and father have their arms around a little boy, but his face is too smudged to make out clearly. "Who are you guys?" She shrugs and moves toward the kitchen. The camera lingers on the picture, the boy's face almost seeming to change if you look at it too long. It's night now. Lucy is sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching a movie. Suddenly, she hears a soft thud from the floor above. She pauses, looking toward the ceiling. "What the?" She gets up and checks the windows. Everything outside is calm. No one around. She hesitates, but then decides to investigate. The footsteps stop. She pushes the door open to reveal an empty room, the bed neatly made. But something is off. The window is wide open, letting in the cold night air. That wasn't open before. She approaches the window, hearing another soft thud from downstairs, and suddenly the door slams shut behind her. She jumps, heart racing. What the hell? She rushes to the door, but it won't open. She pulls and pushes, but it's stuck. Whisper, "Get out." Lucy spins around, but there's no one there. The room feels colder now, and the air is thick with an unsettling energy. Lucy manages to break the door open and rushes downstairs. She's breathing heavily, looking around. The cabin feels wrong now, like it's closing in on her. As she enters the living room, the lights flicker. The picture above the fireplace catches her attention again. This time, the boy's face is clearer, but still distorted. Her heart skips a beat as she notices that the boy's eyes are now wide open, staring directly at her. Suddenly, the fire in the fireplace flares up. Lucy jumps back, startled. What is happening? The whispers grow louder now, and the temperature drops. She feels like she's being watched. She backs away toward the door, but as she moves, the shadows in the room seem to grow. From the corner of her eye, she sees a figure standing near the window. It's the boy from the picture, his face clearer now, pale and distorted. He smiles at her in a way that sends chills down her spine. No. No. No! She runs for the door, but it slams shut in front of her, trapping her inside. The whispers turn into voices, echoing through the cabin. You shouldn't have come. Who are you? What do you want from me? Suddenly, everything stops. The whispers, the shadows. The boy disappears, and the cabin is eerily silent. Lucy stands frozen in the center of the room, her heart racing. She slowly turns and sees the picture on the wall again. This time, the boy is gone, leaving only an empty space where his face should have been. Lucy. What did I just see? Lucy bolts toward the back door, throwing it open. She runs outside into the dark woods, breathless. But when she turns around, the cabin is gone. In its place, only a clearing with thick trees. Confused and disoriented, Lucy stumbles backward, unable to comprehend what's happening. This can't be real. The screen fades to black. Lucy left the cabin that night, but the echoes of its past followed her. Some places, no matter how far you run, never let you go. I had been living in my apartment for nearly 6 months when I first started noticing strange things. At first, they were small. A cabinet left slightly open, a chair pulled out just a little too far from the table. Nothing alarming, just odd. I chalked it up to being forgetful, to the exhaustion of work wearing on my mind. But then, it got worse. One night, I was watching TV, half asleep on the couch, when I heard a faint creak. It came from the kitchen. My apartment wasn't old enough for floorboards to settle, and I lived alone. My heart kicked up a little, but I brushed it off. Maybe the wind. Maybe I left a window open. I got up, walked into the kitchen, and flipped on the light. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The cabinet doors were all closed now. I was sure I had left one open. Then I saw it. The refrigerator door was slightly ajar, just an inch. My stomach twisted. I hadn't been in the kitchen in hours. I stood frozen for a moment, then reached out and slowly closed it. Click. The sound echoed in the silence. I checked the front door. Still locked. Windows? All shut. I told myself I was being paranoid and went to bed. The noises became more frequent. Soft movements in the night, a floorboard creaking when I was sure I hadn't stepped on it. Once, I swore I heard the faintest breath behind me while I was brushing my teeth. I spun around so fast I nearly slipped. But I was alone. Always alone. At least, I thought I was. Paranoia finally got the better of me. I bought a small security camera, the kind you can check from your phone. I placed it in the corner of the living room, facing the kitchen. That night, I went to bed feeling uneasy, but convinced I'd prove to myself that nothing was happening. The next morning, I checked the footage. My stomach dropped. At 2:47 a.m., the camera caught movement. A shadow, just at the edge of the frame. A figure, stepping out from the hallway, standing still for a moment before retreating out of view. I felt cold all over. My apartment wasn't big. There weren't many places to hide. But then it hit me, the attic. I had never been up there. It was a tiny crawl space meant for storage, but I never had a reason to check it out. Now, I had every reason to. I grabbed a chair and pushed open the attic hatch with the end of a broom. A soft, musty smell drifted down. Heart-hammering, I shone my flashlight inside. And there it was, a thin, dirty sleeping bag, a pile of empty food wrappers, and worse, my missing hoodie, balled up like a pillow. Someone had been living up there, watching me, moving around my apartment when I was asleep. I stumbled back, slamming the attic shut. My breathing was ragged. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and called the police. They arrived quickly, searched the apartment, checked the attic. And then one of the officers came back out, his face pale. "You need to see this," he said. I didn't want to, but I stepped inside anyway. On the wall of my bedroom, behind a piece of furniture that I rarely moved, were scratches, tallies, dozens of them, and beneath them, a message, carved into the paint with something sharp. "I watched you sleep. I moved out that same day." I don't know how long they had been there or what they had planned, but I can never shake the thought. What if I had woken up one night and they weren't just watching anymore? Ethan yawns, rubbing his tired eyes. He takes a sip of coffee and glances at the large mirror across the room, just a regular habit. But this time, he freezes. A shadowy figure is faintly visible in the mirror, standing behind him near the doorway. His heart pounds as he quickly turns around. "Nothing," he laughs nervously. "Man, I need some sleep." He shakes it off and continues working, but the unease lingers. A while later, he looks back at the mirror absent-mindedly. The figure is still there, only this time, it's closer. Ethan's breath catches in his throat. He turns around again. Nothing. He grabs his phone and takes a picture of the mirror. But when he checks the photo, the figure isn't there. He exhales shakily and shuts his laptop. That's enough work for tonight. Ethan walks to the bathroom, splashes water on his face, and looks at himself in the mirror above the sink. But his reflection doesn't move. He freezes in place, staring at his unmoving reflection. Then his reflection smiles, a slow, eerie grin. Ethan stumbles backward, knocking over a bottle of soap. His reflection doesn't follow, just grins wider. Then the reflection lifts a hand and places a finger over its lips, shushing him. Ethan stumbles out of the bathroom, grabbing his phone to call his friend Kyle. The call goes through. Kyle: "Dude, why are you calling me at 2 a.m.? Ethan: "Something's wrong with my mirror." Kyle: "What?" Before Ethan can explain, a faint creaking sound comes from his bedroom. He turns and sees... The closet door is now open. A whisper echoes from the darkness inside the closet. "Come see." Ethan backs away, gripping his phone tightly. Kyle: "Ethan? You there?" Suddenly, the bedroom light flickers violently. The whisper repeats, this time louder. "Come see." Breathing heavily, Ethan rushes toward the front door, but stops when he sees something horrifying in the hallway mirror. His reflection is walking towards him, but Ethan himself isn't moving. The reflection gets closer, step by step, reaching for him with outstretched hands. Then, in a split second, everything goes black. The next morning, Kyle arrives at Ethan's house after receiving no response to his texts and calls. The front door is unlocked. Inside, everything looks normal, except for one thing. Kyle glances at the bedroom mirror and sees Ethan inside it. Ethan pounds on the glass, screaming, but no sound escapes. Kyle stares in horror as Ethan's reflection whispers, "Come see." Fade to black. It started with small things. Things I could explain away if I tried hard enough. A cup not where I left it. A chair slightly pulled out. A door that seemed to be just barely ajar when I knew I closed it. You convince yourself you're just tired, that you're being forgetful. But there's a point when you can't lie to yourself anymore. That night was just like any other. I locked the doors, checked the windows, and got ready for bed. It had been a long day, and I was exhausted. But as I pulled the blankets over myself, I heard something. It was soft, distant, like a whisper of movement, a shuffle, a creak of the floorboards. I live alone. I knew the sounds of my house. This wasn't one of them. I held my breath, listening, but there was nothing else. Maybe the house was settling. Maybe my tired mind was playing tricks. I forced myself to sleep. At 3:27 a.m., I woke up. Not to a sound this time. Just a feeling. The kind that crawls up your spine and tells you that you're not alone. My room was dark, but I could make out the usual shapes. The dresser, the lamp, the slightly open closet. But something felt wrong. Then, in the dim glow from the streetlight outside, I saw it. A shape, a silhouette, standing just inside my bedroom doorway. I couldn't breathe. My fingers gripped the sheets so hard my knuckles went white. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I just stared at it, frozen in terror. Then, it stepped back, slowly, silently. And then, the door closed. I jumped up and turned on the light. My room was empty. The door was shut. I rushed to check the house, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might stop. Every door was locked, every window closed. But I knew what I saw. I needed proof. Or closure. Maybe both. So, the next night, I set up a small camera in my room, pointing at the doorway. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd wake up in the morning, check the footage, and find nothing. But when I did, my blood turned to ice. At exactly 3:27 a.m., my bedroom door slowly creaked open. A figure stood there, not moving, not breathing, just watching. It stood there for a full 7 minutes before taking a step back and closing the door. I couldn't tell if it was a person or something else. The shape was too shadowy, the features indistinct. But what terrified me the most was the time stamp. Exactly 3:27 a.m., the exact moment I had woken up the night before. I didn't know what to do. Calling the police felt pointless. What could I say? That a shadow opened my door at the same time every night? I barely slept. The next night, I kept the lights on, staring at the door, waiting. At 3:27 a.m., nothing happened. Then, just as I let out a breath of relief, a whisper, right next to my ear. "Why are you awake?" I spun around, but there was no one there. Just the suffocating silence of my empty room. I didn't stay the night. I grabbed my keys and drove to a friend's house, shaking the entire way. I should have deleted the footage, thrown the camera away. But curiosity got the better of me. When I played it back, my stomach dropped. The night I left? When I wasn't home? At 3:27 a.m., the door still opened, and something tall, with limbs too long and fingers too thin, stepped into the room. It looked around, as if confused, as if searching. Then, after a moment, it turned and walked directly up to the camera. I swear, right before the footage cut to static, I saw it smile.